This is a tutorial for the students in Year 7 to create their very first game in Unity. It's a really simple tutorial. You can work your way through and create something fantastic in just 30 minutes. So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to go onto your web browser and you're going to go to the unity.com website and click Get Started. And when you do that, it's going to register you as a user. I'm already registered. You can see I'm here. I'm already logged in. And you're going to download Unity Hub. And you just follow the step-by-step guide on the website, how to download it, and that's how you get started. Now, once you download Unity Hub, I'm working on a Mac here, but it's exactly the same on a PC. It's identical on a PC, right? So once you get the Unity Hub, it comes in like this, and it takes a little bit of time to load. It's obviously, it uses a fair bit of your computer power to run this project and to run Unity, but once you get it all loaded and started, it's really great. So we're looking at the left-hand side over here where it says Projects, Install, Learn and Community. Now, once you've registered, if you go to Learn, there are some absolutely brilliant lessons in the Unity Learn section. But for today, I'm going to show you how to make a game really quickly. This is the first part of making a game for the kids in Year 7. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Install. And in the install section, this shows the versions of the Unity, the actual editor that you make the games in that you've got installed on your machines. So even if you've installed Unity Hub, you may not have installed the editor that goes with it. So this is how you install the editor. You go to Install Editor, you click it, you choose the latest version of Unity that you want to install, and you install that on your machine. You can see here I've got a 2022 version. That's the latest one. That's the one that I'm using. Previously, I've had a 2021 version, right? So you install the editor. Now, I'm going to assume you've installed the hub, you've installed the editor, and you're ready to go so that we can start our project. So we're going to go to the Projects tab here, and we're going to create a brand new project. So you just hit New Project, and it'll start up and it'll say, right, what sort of project do you want to create? Now, we want to create a 3D core project, and we want to name it right here, something like First Game. I'm going to call this one First Game, and the location where it's going to save into my folder here as my first game. So I'm going to hit Create Project, and Unity will go ahead and get it ready and start up our first game right here. Now it creates a template, it creates the page layout, the 3D environment, and it puts it all together for you to start working. Now it can be a little bit overwhelming when it first starts. There's lots of buttons, lots of things to click, but really it's not that hard. If you can follow this tutorial, then you'll have no issues getting started. Okay. It takes a little bit of time for it to load. Now this is normal, you know, because it's setting up the environment. You just need to be patient. You need to wait for all of this to load, for it to set up the world, and then, like I said, once it gets started, it'll be great. So here we go. Here's our first scene right here. And I like this default view. I tried to not change this default view. I like the way the page is laid out, and I find it pretty easy to work with. Now, when you get here, you'll see over on the left-hand side here, it says main camera and direction of light. So the program starts with a camera already set up and a direction of light. It starts down here with some packages and things like that, which I'm going to get to in just a minute, materials. And then over here, this is the inspector section, and this is the section that we're going to be using a lot. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to install a couple of packages. Now, these packages are pre-made things to help us make our game. So I don't want to have to go and design my own characters and design my own trees and environment and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to use some that have already been made. So I'm going to go up here into Component. In fact, I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to go to the Asset Store. And I click on the Asset Store, and it should open up a web browser for you. And so when your web browser opens up, again, it'll check that you're logged in, so you'll have to have your Unity password, and it'll make sure that you're logged in. And once you're logged in, we're going to do a search in here for standard assets, and you can see it's registered my username, and so it's just logging me in. You can see it's changed here to NM, so it knows that's me. And I'm going to type in here standard. That's all I'm going to type. It's just standard. Hit enter, and I scroll down on this page. And the one we're looking for is this one here called Standard Assets, and it's free. It's free to download. So you can click on that. And when you click on it, it'll say, do you want to install it and all that sorts of things. It's free, and you click there to install that package.
Now, when we say standard assets, the great thing about this one is it comes with things like an aeroplane, it comes with a guy, it comes with a car, it comes with different things that we can drop straight into our program and we can start coding and making a game straight away, right? So this is one that you have to download, and you just hit download and you add that to your program. Now, once you've done that, we'll go back to Unity. We can go to this one called Package Manager. So I'm going to click on Package Manager now. And the Package Manager, I'm going to click this little arrow right in there, that little arrow right there. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to look at My Assets. So these are things that I've downloaded. And when you do yours, you won't really have much there. The only thing you should have is the standard assets one that you've just downloaded down. Now, I've got some other ones that I've downloaded, some cars and some rocks down here somewhere, some sand, some metal. But the one you want to get onto is this standard assets. So that's the one that we're using today. You go to import or download, but I'm going to hit import so that I know it's into this game. And it'll say, all right, what do you want to import? And I'm just going to say, look, I want to import everything. Let's import the lot. Everything that we want there, I just want to import it all into my game so that I know that I can start using it and get going. So I'm just going to hit import. And when I import that, it copies it all into my program. And that's great. So I'm going to have all of these things already in my program ready to start building this fantastic game. So you have to wait for them to go in. Same thing, takes a little bit of time. But this is the painful bit, the sort of the setting up the program. It can take a little bit of time. Once you've got it set up, your creativity and building a game becomes really easy. So we just want to do that setup to start with. Now I'm going to close that package manager, and you can see down the bottom I've got a problem here. It says there's a problem. Now the problem here is the package that we've installed is an old package, and the version of Unity we've installed is a new version, so they don't always get along. So if I have a look I clicked on the console here, and if I scroll up, one of those will be red. And the red one there is right there, and it's called Simple Activator Menu. So I want to go through it. I actually want to delete that. So I'm going to write the word simple. In fact, I'm going to go to my project. I'm going to write the word simple, do a search, and it's right there. It's a part of C# script right there, and I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to delete that from my program. Now that I've deleted that, it reloads everything, and it says, you know what, everything else is working perfectly, we've got no issues, let's get started. So I'll just wait for this to finish reloading itself, and there we go, we're ready to go, and you'll notice straight away no errors down the bottom. So that one little step just there, that's because of the standard assets we installed. That's the thing. Now, we're going to start by looking at our terrain. So, at the moment, we don't have anything on the screen. We've got nothing here, and we want to add some terrain. We want to add a ground for us to work on and a base, basically, for us to start. So we go up here to Game Object, then we go to 3D Object, and we're going to go to Terrain. That's what we're going to do to start with, and this is going to be the ground or the base for our whole project. So you click on Terrain, and a terrain will be drawn. Now, when it first is drawn, you'll see that it's just a huge big square on the screen. Now I'm zooming back on my trackpad. I'm using 2 fingers and I'm pushing up or down to zoom in and zoom back. In fact, I'm going to zoom back so I can show you my whole terrain to start with. And in actual fact, this terrain is massive. It's really, really big. But that's okay. That's where I'm going to start. That's my terrain. Now, I want to edit and play with my terrain. I want to make it interesting. Now, I want you to think about the terrain as the core of the earth that we're on. Now, if the terrain's the core of the earth, on top of the core of the earth, there's a whole pile of dirt and soil. So I want to add dirt and soil to my terrain. Now, the reason I want to do that is if I add a certain amount of dirt and soil to my terrain, then I can actually delete part of it away, and I'll be able to make lakes and have things that go down into the terrain rather than having this perfect flat surface, but I can't go down into it. I want to go down into it. And you'll see more of that when I start to explain a bit better over here. Now, I'm going to go over to my terrain over on this side over here. And I'm actually going to click on this first one, the second one, paint terrains. I'm going to click on that one. That's my paint terrain texture, the second one. And I'm going to click on the little drop down here, and I am going to click on set height right there. I'm going to click on the set height one because I'm going to add terrain above my base surface here. And I'm actually going to set the height to 10. So right here, I'm setting the height of my world to 10. Okay. Then I'm going to get a solid brush down here, and I am going to paint on that layer of earth that I was talking about across my whole terrain. Now, that circle is too small, so I'm just going to increase my brush size so that it's big enough to cover my whole terrain. In fact, I'm just going to go a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to paint, so just holding my finger down on my mouse, and I have added, just by doing that, I've added 10 to my terrain. The height of my terrain has increased by 10. Now you can't really see it, you can't really notice what I've done, but I have. I've added 10 to the height of my terrain, right? So there we go, I've done that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this set height and I'm going to change it, and I'm going to change it to raise and lower terrain. So now that I've done that, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm using 2 fingers on my mouse pad to zoom in. And I've got my terrain here. I'm going to change my brush size to something really small so we can see it. About there, that's pretty good to start with. And I'm going to make it something a little bit rough. So I'm going to change my brush to one of these rough brushes. Let's go with maybe this one. Yep. And if I paint now, you'll see that I start to get mountains coming up. Right, so there, as I'm just holding my mouse button down, I'm getting mountains coming up. Now if I zoom back, you'll see they're not very big mountains really. In the big scheme of the whole page that I'm working on, they're not huge. So I'm just going to do some mountains here, and the rougher you are, probably the better, because real terrain is not, it's not consistent, it's different. So I'm going to increase my brush size. I'm going to increase this one down here as well. That's too much, way too much. And there we go, I can just start to paint some mountains in. And do some terrain here. Now if I want them to be pointier mountains, I can sort of hold this here, hold it a bit longer. I get some bigger, pointier mountains. I can always change my brush shape. So if I want to use a different brush shape here, there's some pointy mountains there. I don't like those, so I'm just hitting Control Z to remove them. I don't actually want them that pointy, so I'm just going to change this a little bit and just sort of make them a little bit flatter. And what I'm doing is, essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a border around my whole terrain. Right? So again, you play with your brush sizes, and you can have a big mountain range here somewhere. I might have a bit of a mountain range here. And I'm just going to increase the size of those mountains a bit. Just get them to come up a bit here, good. Yep, more here. Zoom back a little bit further. And I'm just painting in a really briefly, quickly, painting in a mountain, sort of a mountainous area. Change my brushes, change the sizes, make some of them sort of come up and be a bit more interesting. Don't want them all to be exactly the same. I do want them to look a little bit different, a little bit crazy. So let's put some spikier ones over here. Right, and then maybe a little spiky one here. There we go. So now I've started to make this great terrain. Okay, so that's good. It's not too bad. And you can see, if you concentrate with a smaller brush and you do real details, you can actually get a little bit better quality detail in certain areas, rather than just have those sort of flat, boring ones I had. You could go through and you could add a lot more detail and make it better. Right? Not so important right this moment, but there might be cliffs in amongst the mountains that I've drawn. So there we go. So there's my, pull up some big ones here in this background. Okay, I'm just going to increase my brush size. That's good. Yeah, that'll do the start. Okay, so I've done my terrain there. Now, this is what I was talking about removing some terrain as well. Because I've added 10 to the height of my terrain, I might now decide to go down and actually remove some of that 10 that I added. If I go to here, I go to here, I hold down shift, and now instead of painting upward, I'm actually removing some downward. So that is actually going to end up being a lake. So by holding down shift and painting in the same area, I'm just sort of painting a lake in there as well. Now, I don't want it to be consistent. I'm trying to make it different heights because no lake is really a perfect round circle. It's sort of a weird shapes and those sorts of things. So I'm just trying to make sure that my lake is not a perfect shape. There we go. I might put another lake in over here. Over there we go, that's going to be a lake as well. So now I've got two lakes in. Oops, I've zoomed in too far. So zooming in and zooming out is the 2 fingers in or the 2 fingers out on your keyboard. That's on your trackpad, and that's pretty easy to normally do. I've got my land here. I'm just zooming in again here. And you can see, there we go, I'm just zooming in slowly so you can see the terrain that I've created, the land I've created. And you can see that the water kind of drops down in below that 10 that we put in to start with. So if we're going to have a lake in there, we might as well draw a lake, right? So we might as well put a lake in. So I'm going to go down here into my project console down the bottom here, and I am going to write in water. And if I just hit enter, I should come up with some different types of water and some different things of water. And you can see here, there's one here called Water Basic. And if I click on it, it says up in the top right-hand corner, Water Basic Daytime Prefab Asset. So prefab, if you have a prefabbed asset, that means that it has things like it'll shimmer or it'll move or the wind will blow across it or things like that. So that's really good. I like a prefab asset. The other thing I could do is I could go down here to where my standard assets are. This is one way that I could do it. And I could go to environment, and then I could go to water, and I could go to, just click on water if I wanted to, or water basic, and I could actually go to the prefab folder. So now I can see there are 2 different types of water here that are prefab. One of them is daytime, the other one happens to be nighttime. So I'm going to use the daytime one. So now that I've got that, I'm going to drag that, and I'm going to place it in my environment right in the middle of my lake. And I let it go inside my lake, and if I actually zoom right in with my 2 fingers, if I zoom in, you'll notice that it is there, but it's really, really tiny. It's not very big, right? So what I want to do is I want to make that little preset thing a lot bigger. So I'm going to go over to my scale on the right-hand side here in my inspector, and I'm going to make that 100, and then I'm going to make this 100, and I'm going to make this 100. So now you can start to see this circle appears. That's the size of my water, but it looks like it's too low. So if I click on, I make sure I'm on this tool here, which is the second one, the arrow one, and I click on this green and I pull it, I can pull the water up, right? So I'm pulling it up through the environment, and I can say, look, that looks pretty good. If I push it this way a little bit, you can see I move it back into the back part of the lake, and I can move that water around. Now, one of the problems is, it's not big enough. So I'm going to actually go to my scale here, and if I put on the actual letter X, Y, or Z and I scroll right or left, I can make that move. I can make it get bigger. So I think if I go a little bit wider, my X will be fine. Click on my Y, and my Y is fine. If I click on my Z, you can see the Z one is coming right down this way, and there we go. So now we've got my lake. And I'm actually going to raise my lake a little bit too, so it's about there. And I am actually going to move it a little bit more this way because I want all of my lake to be filled with water. And there we go, we've done the first lake. Now if I zoom back again, I could just, I just want to use my, don't want to use my mouse to do this. I just want to, in fact I'll just leave it like that, that'll do to start with. You can see that there's my lake right there. So we're getting ready, we're getting close to having some stuff done. We've got some mountains and we've got some lake. Now, the next thing I might want to do is I might want to add some trees, right? So this is my environment. I've got lake, I've got ground, but I might want to put in some trees. So I could do the same thing that I did before. I could navigate over here, and I could go into environment. I could go speed tree. There's broadleaf, conifer, and palm. So I could look in any one of those, right? So I could go to broadleaf, go here, and I could say, all right, looks like there's some stuff in there. I'm not sure about that. Conifer, I look in there. Oh, it looks like there's some leaf diagrams. If I go into palm in here, I know there's some in there as palm. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write the word palm in here, and then I hit, oops, I need to spell it right, and I hit enter, and I can see there are some palm trees here. And if I click on these palm trees, same thing as I did before, I can go through and check and have a look at them, and I can say, okay, palm tree that I want to put in, not sure which one of those I like, maybe that one. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so I'm just having a look at seeing what the different ones are. Now I could go to here and I could write broad. And I could have a look at the... B-R-O-A-D, broad, right. And I can click here and I can say, oh, look, there's an interesting one. And yeah, that's a different one. Okay, so I can look at those different ones. So now I want to add them to the environment. So I am going to go up here to my terrain again. I am going to go over to here, which has, so we painted the terrain height, now we're going to paint some trees. So I'm going to click on the paint tree layer there. It says I haven't chosen any trees, so I'm going to edit trees, I'm going to add a tree, and I'm going to go into here, and there's a little button right there. I'm going to click on that little button, and I might start with palm trees. So I'm going to hit palm, so okay, there's the palm tree, double click on that, hit add, and now I've preloaded in a palm tree here. I'm going to choose a brush size, so I'm going to make my brush size a little bit bigger, but I'm going to reduce the density. Now the density is the amount of trees that come up. So I might go to here and just give it a little click. I'm just making a little environment here that has some trees in it, and we can just say, all right, that's a little palm tree area just there. Now I might want to add some other trees, so I'm going to add a different tree. Click on this little button, I'm going to write broad. And then I might choose this broadleaf tree here to start with, add that. So now I'm on this one. I'm going to do the same thing with the painting, reduce my brush size, reduce the density, and I might put the trees, these trees, around the mountain, the base of the mountains. Right, so I'm just going to start to put some trees in over here. Now, if I zoom back, I'm just going to make sure that I'm on that second tool there. 2 fingers, I zoom back, and I can see a lot more of my environment. Now, if I want to see a bit more of my environment, that's better. I can go to my broadleaf trees here, and I can just paint around. You can see I can do a lot really quickly if I want to, or I can just reduce the amount, the tree density, and so you'll get less trees coming up. All right, I'm just going to zoom back a little bit more. Right, and we've got this whole environment to do. So I might do this really super quickly. I'm going to increase the brush size, I'm going to increase the density, and I'm just going to, fill up this sort of forest here, fill up parts of this mountain here with trees, some of that background over there, right? Now, I like it to be a little bit diverse, so I'm going to add another tree, add tree, go to here, I'm going to put in broad again, hit the opposite broad tree, which I think is this one, double click, add that. You can see now I've got a third tree put in, and I might say around this lake I'm going to put some slightly different trees in, because I don't want it to look exactly the same all the way around. I want there to be more of sort of a crazy environment where you have different trees and different things, right? So put a lot of these ones over this end, maybe make this sort of a forest over here of these trees. Right, so there we go. So, and I need to add one more lake, all right? So I'm just going to go back to here. No, I'm going to go to water here. Hit enter on water. And I'm going to grab my water basic and I'm going to drop it into there again. Same as we did before. I'm going to double click on that water basic so I can see it. I'm just going to zoom back a little bit so I can see it a bit better. There we go. And I'm going to increase this to 100, 100, 100. Right, and then I'm going to play with it a little bit. I just want to raise the height of that. So I might just go here, X, Y, raise that up to about there. And remember what I said, I want to change the size of these so that it fills up my lake properly. There we go. So now we've got a second lake, okay? So now you can see the 2 lakes, lots of trees down there in the distance. There are some palm trees. So it's starting to look good. It's starting to look like a bit of an environment and a little bit more interesting. Now I can also go to terrain, and I can also click on grass, and I can add in some details here. If I want to paint some details in, I can do that. And I can do some colours and add some colours to my terrain and those sorts of things. And I'll show you how to do that shortly. I just want to sort of get to the next stage so we can have a look at the next interesting stage. So the next bit that I want to do is I want to add a character. I want to add a person. So I'm going to go over here to my environment over here, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to find characters. So I'm in my left-hand side of the page, down here, characters. I'm going to go to third person character, and then I'm going to go to prefab. And if I double click on that prefab folder, I get two coming up here. Now one of them is AI, artificial intelligence, and the other one is the character that we can actually play with. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to drag him and I'm going to put him right in the middle of that terrain over there. Now that might seem like I didn't do anything, but I did. If I double click on it, we can zoom right in close to him, and this is our character right here. Now, if I click play and play that, my scene will come up in the game section here, and you'll be able to see this scene. But we won't be on this character. We want to be facing and tracing and following this character around. Now, the beauty of the standard assets that we've done is it's going to help us do that, okay? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm on my character. I'm going to set him to a position where I know exactly where he is. So I'm going to set him to, double click here, I'm going to make him 430. I'm going to make him 10. And I'm going to, oh no, 10, not 9.10, I'm going to make him 10. And I'm going to make it 450. Let's delete that. Let's just make the whole thing 450. 450. There we go. I'm going to hit enter. So now I know exactly where my guy is. He is at 430, 10, 450. And if I zoom into him, in fact, I just double click on him. There we go. He's at 430, 10, 450. Now, I want to add a camera to follow him. So I'm going to go to my main camera, and I'm going to remember those coordinates, 430, 10, 450, main camera, and I'm going to move that to 430, 10, 450. Hit enter. So now you'll see the camera appears on the ground here, right here at his feet, right where he's standing. Now I don't want the camera on him, so I'm going to move it up a little bit here, and I'm going to move it back so that it's behind him. And you can actually see with the little preview down here what the scene looks like, where that camera might be at the moment. So if I start my game, this is where the camera's going to be, right behind him. But I actually want the camera to follow him, right? I don't just want the camera to see him, I want the camera to follow him. So this is what we do. You go down into your search box here and you type in smooth, and then you hit enter. And there is a piece of C# code that comes in automatically, comes in with our standard assets, which is called smooth follow. And we're going to click on that piece of C# code, we're going to drag it, and we're going to put it on top of the camera. So I've clicked it onto the camera and it's on top of the camera. Now if I go down to the right hand side over here, you can see the camera now has this smooth follow script that's with it down here. But at the moment, it's not following anything. So I'm going to click on the little dot next to it, and I'm going to say, I really want you to follow my third person character, my third person controller right there. Double click on that. So now it's going to follow my character. My character is called up here, third person controller. My script is doing a smooth follow of the third person controller. Now I'm also going to change some of these. I might change that, maybe I'll change that one to 5, that third one. So my rotation dampening. So when my character turns, my camera will turn with it. The height will stay the same, the distance will stay the same. So now we press play and we can run that and have a quick look at how that works. Now when you press play, it takes you to the game scene. And here's my game scene, here's my character. You can see him running around, you can see my terrain, you can see the trees that I've put in. Let's go over and have a look at some of these palm trees so that you can see what they're like. Now as I'm doing this, I say, gee, that character's a long way away. He's a long way from on the screen. So I'm just going to stop the play scene. I'm going back to my scene over here, and I'm going to change that distance, and I'm going to make that 5. So it's going to be a little bit closer, I think, when I run it. Make sure my camera's in a good spot, nice and close to my guy. That's pretty good. Hit play. Let's see how it goes this time and see if we're a little bit closer. There we go, we're closer. Right, so now we can see my guy running around, and we're going to get him to go over here. Now, because this is a prefabbed character, this is a character that's already made, he already has some skills. So I can press space and he jumps already. I can press C and he crouches and hides. I can go right, I can go left, his arms already move, he's animated, and this is a really great start to our game. We could run down this shoreline here, down towards our water. No, he doesn't swim yet, he just runs, all right? But that's okay, that's not a bad start for us. So that's where we're going to be at the moment. Now, the big obvious problem here at the moment is the ground all looks like it's in grey squares. So the next thing we're going to do is add colour to the ground. But one of the problems is we're still in game mode. So if you have a look at the top up here, it says game and scene. We're in game mode, so we have to press the play button so that we finish that game, go back into the scene mode, and once we're in the scene, that's where we actually want to make some changes, is in our scene mode, okay? Now, the changes we've been making are to the terrain. So we're going to click on the terrain button. We're going to go back over here to this group of buttons here, and we're actually going to go to the paint terrain section. Now, when we painted the terrain, we were raising and lowering the height of the terrain. But now what we actually want to do is we want to actually paint the texture of the terrain. So I'm going to go down, click on the paint texture, and I'm going to go edit terrain layers. I'm going to hit create layer, and the first layer I'm going to create is going to be called grass. And so I'm just going to choose one of these. I could choose this one, and I'm just going to double click on that, and you'll notice straight away in my game, instantly my ground has changed into being this grassy stuff. And if I went and played my game straight away, here we go, I'm running on grass, and automatically the game looks way better, right? It automatically looks like, wow, this is pretty cool. I've got my guy here, the camera's following him around, it's very grassy, it's really good. But the only problem is we don't want one set of grass all the way through. We actually want there to be, down near this beach area and under the palm trees, we definitely want there to be sand, okay? So I'm going to stop my game again, go back to my scene, and in my scene area, I am going to zoom out. So I'm zooming out with my 2 fingers on my mouse pad, and I'm going to go to this edit terrain layer, and I'm going to add another layer. And this time I'm going to put in sand, and there's some sand here. Double click. But this time you'll notice it doesn't change the whole thing, right? It only sort of loaded that section in. So I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, and that's way too big. I'm going to make my brush just a little bit bigger, and I'm actually going to just sort of paste in, draw in some sand here. Now, from where I am now, it doesn't look like it's working. So if I zoom in, you will notice that that has actually worked. I'm painting here with my brush, so here it is. Right, reduce that. Paint. Oh, am I still on? No. Painting in here. Let's see if we can just paint. Let me just make my brush much smaller. Oh, I didn't click it. You have to click it first. Sorry, you have to click it first, then you can paint in. And you can see my sand is starting to paint in. So I'm just going to zoom back and paint from a distance. And I am just actually going to change the opacity. That was too much, so I might undo that, edit, undo. Oops, let's go back to, no, edit, undo, terrain, paint, edit. There we go. So I'm going to go to there, I'm going to reduce the opacity, increase the size a little bit, zoom back on my scene. No, let's reduce the size a bit more, and I'm going to paste in some sand around here. So some sand around my beachy area, and there you go. So under my palm trees, I'm sort of putting some sandy area in, and I've used a really hard edge tool, so I might change it to a soft edge tool, and then if I put a soft edge in and actually make it a bit bigger, the blend will be nicer. It's too big. The blend will be much nicer if I can just sort of soften that edge a little bit, so that when my guy runs over there, it doesn't look like it's instantly hitting sand, but it's sort of, the grass blends into the sand area. There, so I'm just drawing some of that in, maybe just around the edges of my water. Bit of sand around my water there. And of course, if you're thinking about the big picture, you can go back and say, look, there's a whole beach just here. In front of this next lake, there's a beach. It can be grassy on the sides. Now, if I wanted to, I could say, all right, mountains up here. I want to load in some snow. I want to draw some snow on the top of the mountains. But for the purpose of just showing you how this works, there you go. I've painted in some extra texture there. I just don't want it to be so uniform. There we go. Now, if I play it, it should have loaded in that second layer of sand, and I'll have my character in a scene with grass, with some sand, with some trees. He can jump, he can run, he can go right, he can go left. The camera follows him around. Nice blend into the sand. I've probably done way too much sand there, but we've got him running down here, down the beach. And you can see, there we go. He's going down to the water, and that looks great. Camera's following him nicely. Goes into the water, out he comes. And we could go in under these palm trees. Nice shadows. And that's our game at this stage. In the next video, we are going to add some other textures. We might add some rocks in and some other details. We're also going to add a coin or a set of coins where the guy runs around and collects the coins. So that's going to be part of our game, is running around and collecting coins. So that's it for the first video. I think we've made great progress. Remember, you can always pause, rewind, go back in the video if you missed something. If there's a step that you think I've missed or a button that I haven't clicked to help you, then you can always go back and you can always write to me and let me know that I've missed that thing. One more thing I just want to show you really quickly is in this, if I go to scene, is this navigation thing up here in the top right hand corner. You can change your views several different ways by clicking on these different things. If you get stuck and you need to reset that, quit out of the window, come back again, and it should reset. If it hasn't done that, you can hold down on a Mac, you hold down the Option key, and you can actually scan around and pan in and out and around based on that. You can always double click on one of these edges, and that'll help you get back to your centered position. That's it for this video. See you in the next video.